And we continue at 1:06 in the afternoon. Talk Radio 790 KABC, the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wangs in Culver City.
Johnny, let's check the mailbag. Susan writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com on Gavin Newsom and his circus sideshow. John and Randy, if Gavin wants gimmicks, I think it would be appropriate if he traveled the state with a knife thrower, a bearded lady, and a magician who picks your pocket without you knowing it. I'm so sick of this horse's ass. Worst governor ever.
Now, wait a minute. Why would he go on tour with a homeless encampment? It would just remind people of his failures.
Feces everywhere. No compassion.
800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. We know that L.A. Mayor Karen Bass is as unpopular as ever. Ever since the fires took place, Karen Bass's popularity has gone into the basement. This has been proven by the headlines in all the local newspapers. There was a poll out that showed her underwater with her approval rating. The same poll showed that Rick Caruso would beat her handily if the two faced off yet again. We also know that Nicole Shanahan, the billionaire from Northern California, who was RFK Jr.'s vice presidential nominee, is financing a recall effort against Karen Bass. It doesn't matter what the news has been. The news since the fire started has been all bad for Karen Bass.
No!
Many have expected that Rick Caruso will run for mayor either in the recall election or in the next election. Caruso looks like a candidate. He acts like a candidate, but he hasn't declared his candidacy for anything. There's also speculation that he may pass on the L.A. mayor's race and throw his hat in the ring to run for governor of the state of California in 2026. So far, he's not talking about that. However, he did just weigh in on the potential recall of Karen Bass, and Randy, he's against it.
For more, here is Alex Michelson and Rick Caruso.
A lot of Angelenos think Mayor Karen Bass should face a recall over her response and leadership since the January wildfires. But I talked to former mayoral candidate Rick Caruso, who said a recall campaign against Mayor Bass is a bad idea.
If you're going to do a recall now, what's going to happen is the city is going to end up spending $25 to $30 million, which it doesn't have because we've already been told that the city's broke. And then it's going to take 8 to 10 months, and it's going to run up to the June primary. And people in June are going to have an opportunity to vote for or against the mayor. And so why do it now?
It's a fair point.
Well, in addition to all of that, she will essentially have no spending restrictions. So instead of having to play by the campaign finance rules of a regularly scheduled election, if there's a recall, she can spend whatever it takes to save her bacon.
Well, and we've pointed this out before, but it's worth pointing out again. The way the Los Angeles recalls work is different from, let's say, I don't know, the recall of Sheng Tao in Oakland.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Or the failed recall of Gavin Newsom back in 2021. If the recall hits the ballot and the voters can decide that they want to recall Karen Bass, there is no question, too, of who would replace her. That question goes to the L.A. City Council, which means you're putting Ulysses in charge of who's the next mayor.
Yes!
And Ulysses might say Ulysses.
Quite frankly,
I just don't see the point of it if you're going to wait 10 months and it's going to essentially overlap the primary election. If you have a primary election that's already scheduled and already on the ballot, then why not just get her there?
And I think it's a waste of money, waste of resources. And one last thing. We've got so many things the mayor needs to deal with in this city and deal with it well with a lot of focus.
Well, she's not really good at that.
Yeah, that's not possible, Rick.
Rebuilding in the Palisades.
Not good at that.
We still have a major homeless problem.
Not good at that.
All of these kind of things. The crime.
Not good at that.
What is she good at?
Rhyming.
If you're feeling down, if you're feeling blue,
Let's get help for you.
She's also not good at locking up her guns.
It's going to be a diversion to her and her team, and we don't need her attention diverted right now.
I know you saw Nicole Shanahan, who ran with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for a while, is helping to fund this, who said that there's a bipartisan effort to do this. What's your message to Nicole Shanahan and critics who want to see this recall go forward?
Well, listen, we have a difference of opinion, and Nicole knew of my opinion before I posted it, so I don't
They're in a little bit of a Twitter war right now.
Oh, are they?
surprise people. I try to be very transparent, very honest with everybody. But the reality is there is going to be a lot of money spent on this. There's going to be a lot of money that needs to be raised, but the city, it comes out of the city's fund to have this recall at the end of the day, to have this election.
And we don't know if he's running for mayor, but ultimately somebody is going to be running for mayor against Karen Bass in 2026. And there's only so much fundraising that can be done in the city of Los Angeles. So if you've got competing interests of somebody who's trying to run in the primary and the recall that's going to need money for signature gathering and everything else, some donors are going to be tapped out.
Yes, and let's just assume for 1 second that Rick Caruso passes on this race. We still need to field a candidate who's better than Karen Bass. Well, the candidates who are better than Karen Bass are essentially Monica Rodriguez or Tracy Park. One of those two ladies will likely be running against Karen Bass if Rick Caruso decides to run for governor or do something else with his time. Well, those two are not billionaires. Those two are mere mortals. So suddenly, if you take the shackles off of Karen Bass and say, okay, you don't have to abide by any campaign finance restrictions at all, and the unions and the developers and everyone who needs something from you can be shaken down for as much money as you can get out of them, the advantage that Karen Bass would have in that election would be overwhelming against a candidate like a Tracy Park or a Monica Rodriguez.
So if you're honest with people in the city and you ask them, if it's going to be a matter of a couple of months, do you want to spend $30 million on a recall? I think most of the people would say, no, let's put the $30 million towards the fire department.
What'll usually happen, and they did this in Oakland to save time and to make sure they're not mailing out a whole bunch of ballots, they'll probably end up setting, if this thing gets the signatures and the signatures get counted, which can be a tricky thing in Los Angeles County, they might schedule the recall to be on the exact same ballot as the primary.
Oh, sure. And they would do that on purpose, by the way, to help her.
Put the $30 million towards the fire department or to the people who lost their jobs in the Palisades.
Well, the city of Los Angeles is not going to do anything well with that $30 million.
No, they would waste it like they did with everything else.
They're going to fund more gangs that have fronts as nonprofits to stop people from being in gangs. That's a real thing.
Money well spent.
You say you got to be honest. Last time we talked, you said that you hadn't even thought about the idea of running for mayor or governor. Is that the honest answer still?
No.
And it wasn't the honest answer then.
He may have not declared, but he's definitely thought about it.
You're saying, do I ever think about it? Of course I think about it. Am I focused on it? Am I working on it? And is this something that I'm looking at doing anytime soon? No. I'm not, Alex, because...
Well, he doesn't really need to right now because he, with his nonprofit that's actually making a lot of things happen right now with the rebuilding in the Palisades and in Altadena, he's looking more like a mayor than she is.
Sure, and I'm sure he's looking at each race, seeing, okay, which one am I most likely to be successful in if I were to declare my candidacy? If Kamala Harris runs for governor, I assume he would believe that he had no chance in that race. If Karen Bass's polling starts to bounce back, he may have no chance in that race. Now, I think that's highly unlikely, and I think that all things being equal, he is more likely to be elected mayor than he is governor. However, if Kamala Harris bows out and there is no overwhelming favorite, and he has more money than everyone else, he might be able to parlay his fame and his name ID into the governor's mansion. So that may be where he goes. I don't believe him when he says that he's not seriously considering running for either office. I think he's running. I think he just hasn't decided which office he's running for.
I literally am.
And plus, once you actually announce it, then you've got to follow all of the campaign rules when it comes to funding and financing and all that kind of stuff, even media appearances. Right now is just pissed off Angelino. He was on every single channel last night talking about how he doesn't support the recall, but also talking about all the things that his nonprofit is doing to deal with the fires.
Oh, yeah.
Including, he pushed the city of Los Angeles and the county of Los Angeles to commit that the rebuilding in Altadena and the rebuilding in the Palisades will have underground power lines. Now, we'll see if that actually happens, but they committed to it based on his pressure.
Well, if that actually happens, that would be progress.
I literally am spending every hour of my day on Steadfast LA and the rebuilding efforts in Altadena, Palisades, and Malibu.
Has Mayor Bass given you a call and said thanks for the support in terms of the recall?
She has it, and that's fine. I'm sure she's.
How much does she hate him?
Oh, a whole lot. But I think she hates the entire world right now because she was supposed to be this popular, celebrated mayor, and she's turned into a complete buffoon who's just treading water.
Oh, you're so optimistic.
Privately expressing her gratitude about me, but no, she hasn't. and this isn't about that, obviously, but I think we've just got to do what's right for this city.
Caruso says he doesn't have a timetable for deciding on what office he's going to run for. By the way, you can find out more about that nonprofit at
Hey, guys, can you turn the volume down?
Yeah, it sounds like he's in a disco.
Profit at rebuild or at steadfastla.com.
I don't know what the website is. I couldn't hear it, Alex. I think it's Steadfast LA, but that's his organization that is doing everything the private sector can do to speed up the recovery in the Palisades and in Altadena. And apparently there's a lot less roadblocks in Altadena because Altadena is not the city of Los Angeles.
Hearing that music doesn't make me want to go to the website. However, it does make me want a vodka cranberry.
Caruso says he doesn't have a timetable for deciding on what office he's going to run for. By the way, you can find out more about that nonprofit.
Just a note to every single person in television broadcasting, it's okay to have quiet every now and then.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, now that we're approaching the halfway point of today's program, if you want to listen to us after we sign off at 3, that's easy to do.
Let's say that you want to hear some of Karen Bass's greatest hits. All you got to do is search for The John Phillips Show on anywhere that you get your podcasts. It could be Apple Podcasts.
No!
It could be iHeart.
Oh, you're so optimistic.
It could be Spotify.
Doctor!
Anywhere that you get your podcasts, if you search for The John Phillips Show, it should pop up.
What a wonderful way to start your day.
Then you can download all the podcasts where we make fun of this lady.
If you're feeling down, if you're feeling blue, let's get help for you.
And Randy, coming up in just a little under 2 weeks, we're going live in San Francisco.
On Tuesday, April 1st, The John Phillips Show is officially expanding live to the San Francisco Bay Area. We will continue to be here live noon to 3 every single day on Talk Radio 790 KABC in Los Angeles and Southern California, but we will be simulcasting that show on KSFO in the Bay Area, bringing live California content to San Francisco, San Jose, and, of course, Oakland.
I said, hell no, baby boy. Let me get up on out of here.
And we'll be taking calls from Oakland.
It's wild, wild west out here.
And taking interviews from politicians in Oakland.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Probably not her, but how great would that be?
Oh, that would be the get of the century.
You know, that's what a mayor do.
Okay, not long ago, KCAL Channel 9 did an expose on all of the broken fire hydrants in L.A. that the city wasn't fixing. And Randy, we have an update.
Yes, because of local news media, the hydrants got fixed. So don't think Karen Bass, don't think LADWP. You can thank KCAL for this one.
KCAL investigation uncovers more than 1,000 LA fire hydrants listed for repairs that went
You guys can also turn down the volume.
Yeah, they're really into the music these days.
1,000 LA fire hydrants listed.
Take a cue from me. How quickly do I fade out the bumper music so you can hear Johnny?
Right away.
LA fire hydrants listed for repairs that went unrepaired for nearly a year. Tonight, Mayor Karen Bass saying that.
We're still going. It's 10 seconds now.
Cut the music.
Tonight, Mayor Karen Bass saying that story made the entire city safer.
It was a safety issue stretching across the city.
We went 15 seconds before we faded out the music, guys.
It's a long time.
Across the city.
That's right. Fire hydrants sitting unrepaired for nearly a year before the Palisades fire. And senior reporter Ross Palumbo broke that story tonight. He's gotten some big results, Ross.
Well, Pat and Juan, about a month after our investigation now, almost all of those fire hydrants have been looked at and replaced or repaired where necessary. Now, we found...
This is how the city works. If you try to go through the proper channels, nothing gets done. If you embarrass the city on local news media, something gets done.
No, and this, by the way, gives people the worst impulses. Because whenever you have a problem with a business, whenever you have a problem with your neighbor, whenever you have a problem with fill in the blank, it's always best to try to go through the proper chain of command, because the chain of command exists so that problems can be solved. But once you get rewarded for going around the chain of command because everyone understands that the chain of command doesn't work, then everything gets turned upside down. And instead of addressing an issue at the restaurant with the waiter or whatever, I want to talk to the manager. But this is how they train us.
1,350 fire hydrants that the fire department said needed service, but were never looked at or fixed for months. Some of those were in the Palisades before the fire. One of them was near this man's singed home and his neighbor's burned out homes. LADWP was supposed to fix them, but they say LA Fire never gave them the complete list according to their protocols, and they claim they knew nothing about them. But after...
Yeah, they claimed, there were no broken fire hydrants in 2024. That's what they claimed.
Right. DWP claimed at one point in time that the LA Fire Department collected this information but never turned it over.
But after we uncovered the 1,350 hydrants and exposed the problems, Mayor Bass demanded action.
Not because of anything she did, but because she looked bad on Channel 2.
And by the way, keep in mind, there are all kinds of allegations of one city department not communicating with another, specifically the fire department with other departments. Her liaison, the mayor's liaison to the fire department, who's supposed to be the one that's communicating this information to everyone relevant at the city, is on administrative leave right now for allegedly making fake bomb threats.
No!
I think his name is Brandon Johnson, and she keeps getting asked about updates. What's going on with that guy? Have you filled that position? She doesn't even want to talk about it.
Right now, we're giving you an update on LA's broken fire hydrants.
KCAL uncovered 1,300 fire hydrants that LAFD reported broken in 2024 that LADWP never fixed, and then LADWP said they never even got the list. Well, that report was very embarrassing to one Karen Bass.
No!
So let's hear what she had to say about it.
How could that possibly happen?
Well, that is a good question.
A very good question. If only there was someone with the answers.
And we are checking into that right now.
That's
All
what you say
of
to
this
him.
is unacceptable, which is why we have to...
Everything I've done since January is unacceptable.
How much do you think she wishes she never gave up that safe congressional seat?
Every day. Every single day. You could pretty much do whatever you want. You get to fly around the world. She could go to Africa as many times as she wants for her delegations. You don't have any real scrutiny as a member of Congress in a safe district. None. We just all assumed, Karen Bass. Yeah, she knows what she's doing. No, she doesn't.
You're also just relatively anonymous. So it's not like you get harassed when you go to the grocery store. It's not like you have protesters outside your house. When you're the mayor, everyone knows who you are and everyone is aware of your failures.
which is why we have to get to the bottom of it.
Have we found out how it happened, how something like this could happen?
Well, we have gotten to the bottom of it, and we know that the list, as a matter of fact, I think you provided the list of 1,350 hydrants. Out of that, they have inspected almost all of them. They have about 61 more to go.
So KCAL gets more done than Karen Bass.
What does this show you about her standards and practices? Where she has to be embarrassed in the news provides the information that was compiled by the city that she leads, but because the one department's not talking to the next, she has to take the information from the news, use the information from the news, and then demand that the city fix them.
It's almost like the mission statement for local news forever has been holding local government accountable, holding their feet to the fire. Now the mission statement of the local news is doing the government's job for them.
They did replace 149 hydrants.
After we expose this problem, do you feel the city is now safer?
I do feel the city.
Okay, that was a little bit of a pat yourself on the back kind of question.
Thanks, Karen. The city's safer.
Well, I think he's trying to get her to say, thanks, Ross Palumbo. The city's safer.
She should.
I do feel the city. And you know, sometimes this happens, and we appreciate your efforts.
Well, as for how this all happened.
Okay. While KCAL did an admirable job putting that information on the news, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. It's not like they had engineers looking at all of the fire hydrants. The information that they put on the news was from the fire department. The fire department says that the DWP had access to all of this information for some time. They just chose to do nothing with it.
Karen Bass doesn't want to talk about that part of the story. She just wants everyone to know, okay, we looked at the fire hydrants.
No, but this is a fundamental failure of city government. And as a result, property was destroyed, and it's going to take forever to build it back.
Well, as for how this all happened in the first place, the LA Fire Department is now also speaking out about that list of broken hydrants that it submitted to DWP for repairs. And they're now saying that, quote, some columns were erroneously omitted by LAFD staff and that there was some, quote, inconsistent use of terminology, which may have contributed to some confusion. But they hasten to also add that firefighters did not receive any inquiries from LADWP requesting the annual data, seeking clarification or an update regarding the necessary repairs. Again,
no, Janice Quinones, who makes $750,000 a year, saw, hey, I guess we don't need to fix any fire hydrants this year. That makes sense.
Well, and this is exactly what Bass wanted the fire department to do after the fires happened, and Bass was catching all kinds of hell. She wanted a quote-unquote after-action report where the fire department took the L on the fires and not her, to take all of the heat off of the mayor's office. What the mayor wanted when she cleared this one up and got to the bottom of it was the fire department to take the L. Because if the fire department takes the L, okay, that's the department that was run by the woman I demoted. So they were the ones at fault. They were the ones that dropped the ball. Not me, not the DWP, whose head I hired and gave a ton of money to. This is all about the blame game.
Again, LADWP maintains that it never received a proper list according to its protocol.
This the same LADWP that didn't fix that reservoir for over a year?
Same one.
Maintains that it never received a proper list according to its protocols. The mayor says that she believes there is probably a little blame on both sides. She believes the problem, though, is now fixed. Remember, they didn't know anything about this until we brought it to their attention. So, of course, the mayor says she's going to...
How can anything run when city departments don't know how to talk to each other?
No. Again, go back to what Randy just referenced. The reason that the fire department had no water in those fire hydrants and the reason that they were caught by surprise with the lack of available water was because the Department of Water and Power never told them that the reservoir was empty and had been empty for some time.
Of course, the mayor says she's going to be looking in the future to make sure this happens properly. We'll be looking.
The next time the city burns down, we'll make sure the fire hydrants work.
No. she's not proactive about any of this. She reacts to stories in the news that make her look bad. And the only reason that she has any interest in fixing it, to the extent that she does, is to take the heat off herself.
We'll be looking as well.
Well, making a difference again.
And getting results.
Thanks, Ross.
Thanks, Ross.
Of course.
I guess it's a good time to put out this solicit. If you happen to work for the city of Los Angeles and you would like to make Karen Bass look bad, send us a tip at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com.
We appreciate all of them. And Randy, we have some breaking news coming from Los Angeles City Hall.
The city of LA is even broker than we originally thought, now facing a $1 billion budget shortfall. This was at today's LA City Council meeting. Let's listen to a little bit of what the guy who does the budget, Mr. Szabo, had to say.
The reality that the gap to close, our expenditures have to meet with revenue. When the gap between expenditures and revenue approaches $1 billion, it is not possible to close that gap without looking at reduction of some services somewhere in the city.
Pink slips are going to be raining throughout the city of Los Angeles.
And this is exactly what happened at the state level. In a state that has one-party rule, the truth is whatever you say it is. However, ultimately, when you're dealing with something like a budget, you have to have money in the bank if you're going to write the checks. You can say you have the money in the bank. If you don't, the checks will bounce. So you can't do that. And at a certain point, you do have to acknowledge reality. And what we found is that either in Sacramento or at LA City Hall, they just tell you everything's fine, everything's fine, everything's fine, until they're forced by the people who look at the numbers to acknowledge that everything is not fine. In fact, everything has gone to hell, and we don't have the money to pay our bills. And that's what happened today.
When we saw the deficit last year, what was the answer? Oh, well, we're going to cut a bunch of vacant positions. Well, that ended up meaning that the LAFD could not hire the mechanics to fix the fire trucks, which is why over 1,000 firefighters could not be on the lines the day of the winds that led to the fires. We're going to see reductions in a whole bunch of budgets, but you can't touch fire. You obviously can't touch the police because we've seen the problems with that. So where are they going to make the cuts? Maybe, just maybe, it's time to cut the damn homeless budget because it doesn't do anything.
There's no way to make this work without taking a meat cleaver to all of these phony baloney homeless organizations, the safety ambassadors, all of these worthless social programs that they love to talk about that we know don't work.
How about all the money that we gave to the head of the Crips?
What'll be interesting to see is if they are so wed to those groups that they're willing to cut public safety before they cut their phony baloney organizations that all have political connections. Because if you're talking about the police department or the fire department, the political power that they have comes from the unions. The PPL, LAPPL, the union that represents the cops, the LA Fire Department Union, or the Firefighters Union, they have a bunch of dues-paying members. They have a lot of people who make six-figure salaries, who do well for themselves, who kick into the till. And so they have money to play in mayoral elections. They have money to play in city council elections. They have money to play if there's a bond on the ballot or a measure on the ballot that impacts them in some way or another. That's where the power lies. When you're dealing with these phony baloney homeless organizations, it's different because the people in charge are the ones that are politically connected. How often do you see someone who was a politician or is related to a politician or is an aspiring politician that has political connections that run these organizations where the money is funneled from the city to the homeless organization that then hires all the people who are friends and family members of the city councilman or the mayor or fill in the blank. And they're essentially political entities that help to keep the cadre of people in power for as long as they can. So if you cut those organizations, you're essentially going after your own political machine, your own political operation. So you don't want to do that. So my guess, and I'm just making this up, they would be willing to cut public safety before they would be willing to cut their own political operation.
Well, and don't forget, the makeup of the city council is a little different than it was last year. Ulysses has more allies than before.
Quite frankly.
And I don't think there's any argument you could make that could get her to cut the safety ambassadors or harm reduction or any of the phony baloney homeless organizations. I don't think that's possible. I think you just have a built-in block of votes on that council that is ideologically unwilling to do that. So then you got to figure, okay, well, where are you going to get the votes if you're going to cut the fat? And I think that they believe in their heart of hearts that the fat is more important than the essential services. And if that's where you come at it from, I don't know how you end up with a functioning city. I guess if you're Karen Bass, you can lean on these people. But right now, with her poll numbers in the toilet, that block of votes is the only block left that's still behind her.
Well, and specifically, we've seen Karen Bass cozying up to that block, holding a nonsensical press conference with Ulysses Hernandez to declare victory in MacArthur Park for all of her harm reduction nonsense programs.
Right now, not that I have any sympathy for Karen Bass, but Karen Bass is put in a horrible situation because the only people left who support her on the council are the crazy people. And the crazy people don't want her to cut any of the places that need to be cut. They're going to want her to cut the essential services. But if she cuts the essential services, how do you make the case to voters? You cut the fire department's budget. The fire department didn't have the resources they need to fight the fire. You go and cut them again. How do you ask for votes in Pacific Palisades? How do you ask for votes in any area that feels threatened by fire? But that's what your base is going to force you to do because they don't want you to cut the other things.
How can we dare cut all these alternatives to policing when Ulysses wants us to cut policing?
Because we are the defund the police people, right?
What'll be interesting is if she could put together some kind of tax increase and throw that on the ballot as the compromise. And she says to the fire department or the firefighters union and the police union, okay, here's the deal. I'm going to cut you X percent unless you kick in Y dollars to support this tax increase. And then she goes to the phony baloney homeless organizations that are all political entities and say the same thing. So she puts everyone in the same boat behind a tax increase where they go out and they soak the rich or they soak homeowners or they soak whatever they can. Sales tax increase, I don't know. I bet you that's what she ends up doing. Because if she's just going to deal with the same amount of finite money that she has and she's got to find places to cut, I don't think she can cut the fire department and I don't think she can cut the homeless groups. I don't think she can do either one and politically survive. So a tax increase, I think is coming.
No.